everyone, I'm Kevin Nelson. Here's a look at what's going on this week in the news. We begin with news from the Vatican. Pope Francis has decreed that Latin-rite Catholics around the world will mark the feast of the Blessed Virgin Mary, Mother of the Church, on the Monday after Pentecost each year. The gospel reading for the feast from John recounts how from the cross Jesus entrusted Mary to his disciples as their mother and entrusted his disciples to Mary as her children. The decree was released March 3rd by the Congregation for Divine Worship and the Sacraments. Cardinal Robert Sarah, prefect of the congregation, noted in a brief commentary that Blessed Paul VI in 1964 had formally bestowed the title of Mother of the Church on Mary, but that recognition of her maternal care for the Church and for believers had already spanned centuries. More news from the Vatican. Pope Francis held a private audience with the Chancellor of the Republic of Austria on Monday in the Vatican Apostolic Palace. Holy See Press Office said the Pope and the Austrian Chancellor underlined the importance of the protection of life and family and the promotion of the common good of society, especially with regard to the weakest sectors of the population.
Europe's youngest head of government paid a visit to Pope Francis. 32-year-old Sebastian Kurz is the Chancellor of Austria. Kurz presented the Pope with a copy of the sheet music for Silent Night, which was first performed 200 years ago. In fact, during the encounter, the Chancellor invited the Holy Father to Salzburg to celebrate the anniversary. Pope Francis gave Kurz a medallion imprinted with a peace tree and the three main documents from his papacy. Among the policies in the Chancellor's political program are expedited deportation for immigrants who break laws and an anti-immigration stance. Thus, in a press release following the agreement, the Vatican mentioned the need for solidarity between peoples was referenced. According to Sebastian Kurz's message on Twitter, the meeting also included issues on which the two leaders agree, such as climate change, a ban on nuclear arms, and the persecution of Christians.
In news from around the world, the Vatican has confirmed that Pope Francis will visit Geneva in June. The visit is meant to commemorate the 70th anniversary of the founding of the World Council of Churches, the WCC, and show the Catholic Church's support of the organization's ecumenical initiatives. Cardinal Kurt Koch, president of the Pontifical Council for Promoting Christian Unity, said the visit June 21st will be a sign of recognition of the unique contribution of the WCC to the modern ecumenical movement. While the full program for the one-day visit is still being planned, it's expected the Pope will meet briefly with the Swiss president and then visit the WCC headquarters for an ecumenical prayer service in the center's chapel. The Pope is also expected to celebrate Mass for Catholics gathered in Geneva that day. Back to the Vatican. The Vatican is taking a closer look at loneliness and ways to eliminate it, thus helping the overall health of people as they age. Rome Reports has more on this initiative from the Vatican.
It's paradoxical, but in the world of social networks, we are increasingly more alone. It's an epidemic in Western society, and if loneliness is combined with the pain of an incurable disease and advanced age, the trauma can become very difficult. Countries like Belgium have used this argument to justify the legalization of euthanasia, which is completely rejected by the Church as well as other sectors. In fact, the Vatican is taking another route, trying to eliminate loneliness and investing in palliative care. That's why the Holy See joined 400 experts from 38 countries to share experiences and launch this proposal worldwide. Globalization is very technological, but not very human. That's why I believe people must be educated about life stages, their problems, and how essential human relationships are.
100% of us.
I think that one of the challenges is that 100% of us sitting here are going to die. I know that you wanted to do this in an optimistic, positive note, but it's an important reminder. Most of us are going to die of a chronic progressive illness that is going to cause considerable physical, emotional, functional distress and suffering to our families. Most of medicine for the last 70 or 80 years has focused on managing diseases. Our hospitals, our healthcare systems, our universities are organized around diseases, more than around personal suffering for those diseases. Eduardo Bruera from the University of Texas is an oncologist. He's one of the experts who have come to the Vatican. Bruera specializes in palliative care and also reminds that, in reality, very few people request euthanasia.
More news from around the world. In Melbourne, Australia, a month-long hearing has begun to see if Cardinal George Pell, head of the Vatican Secretariat for the Economy, would stand trial on decades-old charges of sexual abuse, which he has consistently denied. The Cardinal appeared in court March 5th for a committal hearing scheduled to conclude by March 30th. The Cardinal has taken a leave of absence from his position to face the charges in Melbourne, where he served as Archbishop from 1996 to 2001. No charges have been announced against the Cardinal. Up to 50 witnesses could be called during the committal hearing. Much of the hearing will be conducted in private. And finally in the news, Pope Francis met with members of Italy's National Association of Nursing Professionals recently at the Vatican. During the meeting, the Pope paid tribute to a Dominican nun who was his nurse when he went to the hospital at the age of 20 fighting a lung infection. He said the nurse argued with his doctors that he needed more aggressive antibiotics to treat the infection. The Pope said with the removal of part of the infected lung and the antibiotics, he survived thanks to the nurse. The Pope went on to tell the nurses that the sensitivity they acquire by being in contact with patients all day makes them promoters of the life and dignity of persons. The Pope told them never forget the medicine of caresses. A caress, a smile, he said, is full of meaning for one who is sick. It's a simple gesture, but encouraging. He or she feels accompanied, feels closer to being healed, feels like a person and not a number. That is all the information we have for you this time with Kim and Nelson. Don't forget, you can keep up to date on Catholic news throughout the week with Catholic Newsbreak right here on the Catholic TV Network.